Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of our program. In our previous episode, we talked about tithes and the storehouse. And we have scheduled to continue our discussion today on what the meat represents, what the offering represents, and what the blessing of God represents. Because reading from Malachi 3, as we did from our previous episode, we got to the point where we made it clear that we have an understanding of what the things that have been mentioned in that passage means. The storehouse, the tithes, the meat, the offering, and the blessing. But we are able to extensively talk about what the storehouse represents and what the tithes actually is. So on today's episode, we'll be discussing on the meat, what it represents, the offering, what it represents, and finally, what the blessing of God actually is. So to get into that today, I have with me on this forum Brother Kufre, Sister Odwak, I'm Brother David, Sister Uti, and Brother Chigozie. And joining us from Dallas is Sister Ebele. I would I would like us to, start this discussion with a little bit of a review of what we did last time. We described the storehouse to be the person or a body in which the Spirit of the Lord, as the Spirit of creation, has put his spirit in, has put his capacity in to function in the midst of men as God. That's what the storehouse represents. That the storehouse, in other words, is the person of God in the midst of the people. That was what we established on our previous episode. Then, when it got to the issue of tithes, we tried to let our viewers understand that the tithes doesn't refer to money, because each and every one of us were instructed to bring the tithe to the storehouse. And tithe as money can't be what everyone has, because definitely we can see that there are those in our midst who don't have that money. So tithe has to be something that each and every one of us has or have in our possession to bring to the storehouse, which we have established to be the person of God in our midst. So we now went on to establish that the heart is the tithe, or the heart is what the tithe represents. And we said that the heart isn't the organ, but the engine room, the inner being that constitutes the man, that drives the man, that drives the human being. And that's what the heart represents. We try to lay some emphasis as well. We try to talk about the passage that made reference to he that had ear. Try to point out to the fact that the ear isn't this one, but still referring to that heart, because that's where the analysis goes on. That's where the reasoning of man goes on. And so that is appealing to that heart, that whoever has that listening ear, that he does that with that heart. And so we now describe that that's what the tithe represents, and each and every one of us on the face of the earth, we have that, and that's what we have been instructed to bring to the storehouse, yes, which now is that person of God in our midst. And why we now, decided to talk about the meat is because it follows a pattern, just as we said. It's connected. You bring the tithe to the storehouse, so there is meat. And we tried to talk about what the meat was, but because of time, we didn't want to get into it, so we could extensively talk about it, just as we did for the storehouse and for the tithe. Yeah. So that's where we'll be kicking off this discussion from today. What the meat represents, and you can't get to know what the meat represents without going, backwards to the earlier verses of Malachi chapter 3, and I think we'll read from verses 1 to 4. That's what makes reference to, the work or what the meat represents. Okay, so are we there?
Yes. Malachi chapter 3.
Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord, whom he seek, shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom he delights in. Behold, he shall come, said the Lord of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. And he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. Okay, we can even stop at 3 without going any further. We tried to describe that when you bring your heart to God, that we are asked to prove God. And if you remember, we said you can't prove who God is because nobody knows God. And when we talk about proof, that when you want to prove something, it's based on the knowledge you already have.
Yes.
So, and because it has been established that no man knows God, definitely we can't prove God. So, he is the one to reveal himself to us. So, we also try to make reference to John 4, where the meat was described by Christ. That at some point, based on what we can read from the Bible, that his disciples, according to the picture that was painted, that his disciples, went out to get food. And when they returned, they were like, Master, come and join us, or come and eat, that we have gotten food for you. And he was like, the meat I have, or the meat I have is to do the will. I think we should just read that. Just to clarify, to make it clear. Yeah. So I think that's on John chapter 4, verse
31 to 34.
31 to, you say from 31 to 34.
Yes.
Okay. So are we there?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. In the meanwhile, his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat, that he know not of. Therefore said the disciples one to another, Had any man brought him aught to eat? Jesus said unto them, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. This is Christ now describing what the meat is, because he is the way, he is the life, he is the truth. Understand? So we have all been instructed to come to him, because he is the one who is going to give us the life. He is the one who is going to show us the way. So that describes a work he has to do on everybody who desires to have that life which is of God. And so when we bring our hearts to God, just as we described in our previous episode, that why we have been instructed to bring the heart is because the heart is what drives the activities of man. And it has been said that we have gone out of the ordinances of the Spirit of God. And that's because of that heart, that engine that drives our activities. So bringing that heart to him is so work can be done on it.
Yes.
And to put us back on track. And so now the meat describes a work that will be done on that heart, which is what Malachi chapter 3 verses 1 to 3 is describing. The kind of work that will be done, because everyone would have to encounter that messenger, who would act as a purity. How was it?
A refiner and
A refiner, a refiner's fire. You understand? To purge. That's to forge, to purge our heart. That's to work on it as silver. To work on it as as gold. Because all those things require a refining process to get a finished product, a finished goods out of it. And so that's what has been described, the work. And so the meat actually is the work in which the person of God is going to do in our hearts when we make ourselves available to Him. That's what the meat now describes. But what we have, or what we know the need to be, is like, you have to pay your tithe, just from the video we played earlier. You have to pay your tithe, referring to money, because it's that money now that is going to facilitate whatever thing the so-called ministry or the so-called house of God needs, which is not what it is, because we have now described the need now to be food, even if it's not food, but we have described the need now to be something tangible, that your paying of tithes as money would have to, that's, your paying of tithe would provide for those things. That's because, as we have said, what man knows is the things of man. So when he goes ahead to apply his knowledge to the things of the Spirit, he definitely goes off track. And so the meat now, which is the work that the Spirit of God, or the person of God rather, is meant to do in us, that's what we have taken to be, the outcome of paying your tithe, or what we get after you pay your tithe. You pay your tithe, it's now paying, it's no longer bringing. You now pay the tithe, and they use the tithe to go and get the meat to be in the house. That's what we have been taught to understand, that the meat, or our tithe, is used to get the meat that will be in the house of God. And the meat now is now referred to whatever necessity or whatever commodity that is required to run that place that has been tagged the house of God.
It's the same thing that we are talking about here. The difference is that the application. When we apply the things that meant for the Spirit as man, you get the outcome of man, because you apply it the way of man. We have said that meat is work. In the denomination, meat is also work. For the work.
But what kind of work?
You understand?
Yes.
There is a way of God, and there is a ways of man. So, but if these things that are written are the things of the Spirit, it is only God who's supposed to come and fulfill them to achieve the purpose of why those things were written. But as man, or as men, when we apply them according to our knowledge, because that is what the Spirit has given to us as man. So when you say the meat, bring the tithe, come and pay your tithe, and the tithe become money. And what the money does for us in the denomination as man is for the work, so that the work in the church can go on. You see, it's the same thing. In application, it's the same thing. But according to the principle, we are wrong.
Yes.
Because we have defined tithe to be money. So when we bring the money, they use it for the work of the church. That is man. And that is the function of men. There is nothing good that can come out from that function. That is why you see that today, the man now that is standing or trying to represent the God, we have said that nobody can represent God. Because when you see a man that is coming from that God, that Spirit, that man you see automatically is the Spirit, because there's supposed to be a marriage of that Spirit between the Spirit and the body. So when you see a body doing the work of the Spirit, it shows you that it's the Spirit that is doing the work. in the body. But when the spirit is not there, the man will do the work according to that spirit of man. So the misconception that we have seen today, or I will call it the misapplication, we misapply the things that the spirit conceived because we think we can get the work of God, we can do the work of God. No man can do the work of God. No man. So, but what we don't understand in our world is that man, as you are seeing, is men, everybody. It's the same thing when you are seeing God. You are seeing somebody looking like the men. Looking like the men. Having the same face, having the same head, having the same leg, the same hand. Just like man. But because man is not the body that you are seeing, man is the spirit in the body. So we think that when God is now coming to do a work looking like us, is a man like us, is the same man. But that is where you see the difference, because we are seeing and we are hearing, we are saying what we are saying today based on what we have heard. And we have seen that, without God making himself available in a bodily form, there is no how humanity can have the way of God seeing in our world. There is no how.
Yeah, there's no way, because we have been saying that. That's just to add to what you have said. We have been saying that that if the design of the spirit was to render help to men from the skies, I don't think he would have needed prophets. He would have needed apostles. He would have needed anybody. And if you go back to how things were put in the Bible, though this book is not a book of past religious events, we have been saying that continuously. Understand? But there's a trend there. Understand? There was always a person. There was, like he says, Abraham, there was Noah, there was always somebody, understand, who stood as a figurehead, understand, to the people, representing the person of God in their midst. All the way to Moses, then down to the point where we now believe that he had to send his own son. It shows, following the trend, that somebody has to be available with the people, to give them express direction.
Work that will come from that spirit.
Yeah, express direction coming from that spirit, for them to know the way that they are meant to go in order to please God. And if that wasn't his pattern, or if that wasn't an already established, program on how he was going to render, help to man, I don't think he would have laid it out in this book up to the point where he had to send his own son based on our beliefs. But just as we keep on saying that none of that ever happened. But if something like that ever happened, imagine what the state of men would be if we are capable of killing the Son of God. That's just to add to what you are saying, that there is no way we can have help which is of God when there is no God in the midst of the people for us to get that help from.
From that point that we are speaking from, because why we are trying to bring this thing to our world is that, you see, it is necessary for everyone to just, whatever thing that somebody thinks that he knows when it has to do with God, we need to understand that as long as it has not come from that God, because what you need to know that has to do with God must be that you meet the God in person and he show you the way.
Yes.
It's not because you read the book or you think that you can have the God, or you can contact the God, or maybe have encounter with the God in the dream. Like some of us keep saying that he appeared to us in the dream. That's what men said.
Yes.
But it doesn't work that way. That's why from the first explanation that you gave concerning the storehouse, when we were talking about tithe and offering, which is the last episode, you first explained that all we need to know first is what the storehouse represents. And without us knowing what the storehouse represents, we cannot understand what the tithe is. And so we cannot understand what the offering is. If you cannot understand what the tithe is, you can't understand, the storehouse is. You can't understand what the tithe is. You can't understand what the meat is. You can't understand what the offering is. Then you cannot understand what the blessing of God will be. That is why we are following this in one after the other, spending our time to pass this message to our world, to understand and listen. The ways of God are the ways of everybody. The way everybody can get that life, can get that goodness that will come from God. It's not a way that it must be for those who have resources, because that's what the tithe shows. That if you don't have something doing, you cannot have resources to give to God, which is supposed to be a means to go and prove that this is God. Because the tithe that is meant for the proof is not something that when you have it, you go and pay and you just see that God will go and bless you somewhere. But it's a proof to be able to know the presence of God, to encounter the presence of God in a generation, to identify where God is.
Yes.
And that proof is because of that work, that meat. Because when the work is going on in you, like we keep saying in this our forum, that we come in encounter with this person. And in the process of the work, in the course of the work, we now understand that, oh, this thing that is happening with everyone that contact this person cannot be from any other source than God. So that is because there is a work going on. But the ways of man, like I've said before, is that once you take up the work that has not been given to you, you'll be forced to look for money.
Yeah.
You don't even need to say you are sitting down and praying for money, as people will say. That's why we say that the love of money is not because of the interest you have for money, but because the way the system is structured, there is no how you can survive in the world without money. So it's the same thing with the men that are talking about the way that are trying to claim the ways of God to the people. So when you involve in those things, no matter how sincere you are, you see that the world is running with money to get every material. So it will force you to go and look for money. Now, the one who doesn't know, who don't feel like looking for money, you see that there is no how he will survive without looking for money. Because everybody wants to break through. But what breakthrough do we need? That even the desire of the breakthrough, you see that the men who call themselves the men of God, they desire the presence of God. And that presence of God they desire, they call it the Holy Spirit. But we have said here that the Holy Spirit is that spirit of creation, the one that is holy, that will look for a body that is holy before he can now walk with men. So that is why today we are seeing that the guide that we need for the work, which is the meat that everybody needs, must come from that right person. That Holy Spirit.
And this type of a thing is not this money. It's not this money of a thing. If it is money, how many of us have money to go to God? There are some of us who don't have hands. Many of us are crippled. We don't have nothing doing. How can God create a standard for the world? He gives this one, this thing, if it is that is money, he gives to one particular group, and this other group doesn't have. Can that be God?
You know, we have established that the tithe is the heart. The storehouse is the person of God whom we need to take that heart to. And now we have now established again that the meat is the work that has to go on in that heart. And that work can only be done by the person of God, which is why we have been instructed to bring the heart, to bring the tithe, which is the heart, to the storehouse, which has been established to be the person of God. So with that out of the way, then we go to what the offering is.
I would like to introduce this before you go to the offering,
Yeah.
so that anybody listening to us will not say, how do you say the meat is the work? I've said something. I said, even the one that we do in the so-called church,
Yeah.
they say when you bring the tithe, when you come and pay the tithe, it's for the work.
Yes.
So if they say it's for the work, and we are sitting down here telling you the work is not that one. The work is the one that when you bring your heart to, the Spirit will prepare you. That is where the work is, because the work is supposed to go on in His house.
Yes.
And in His house is
body
our
of
body.
God.
Yes.
That's why I want to establish this.
Yes.
And when He said in John 6, labor not for the meat that perishes, which is what is going on today in our world.
Yeah.
He said, labor not for that meat, because all you seek for is what to eat. That is man. How to survive. That's man. So to show you that meat is work, but it's not the work that we do.
Yeah.
But he said, labor not for that meat, but labor for that meat that shall be endure to everlasting life, which who will give you? The Son of Man. That is God Himself in the present, because the Son of Man become the person that born in the midst of men, that the Spirit has found worthy to dwell in.
Yeah.
He's a person looking like man, but is the God in the midst of men. He said that is the person that will give you that meat, that will endure to eternal life.
So you can see while the book is written about him, because it was written by the inspiration of the Lord about that person, which is the storehouse. So it is from that person that these things can be done properly. You can see, because we carry the Bible to read what this verse represents before me, we take me to be that when you bring your tithe, as my brother said, you use it to do things in the house of God. And the house of God, we know, is to build a block house. Yes. You understand? So that's where we are looking at as men. But this is God, which this thing was written about. It is only the one that will come and establish what the work, which is the meat, is, which is working in our hearts, as we mentioned, to really see that it's different from what we were operating, knowing that it wasn't written for us. You understand? But we took it to be like maybe we went to school, we know how to read and interpret. You see that we apply it wrongly because it wasn't meant for us. So this thing was written about that person. Yes. It's for that person. Without that person, we cannot get it right. So that's why we establish meat to be the physical work, the structure we build as a house of God. But the Spirit, this is the Spirit talking about this house. Just like the Matthew 21 that you say, enter into the temple of God, which is being the heart. But what we see as men, when we read that Bible portion, scripture, it seems like, yes, it's like you enter into the place we call temple. Because in the structure, we have what we build as temple. But this is God talking about His building, His temple, which is the heart of men. So this thing cannot be gotten by our own explanation and divination, apart from the one that the thing was meant for.
So from that point you are driving, it just connects to everything we are saying here.
Yeah.
That everything that the Spirit put in the writing, we as human, we have the way we structure it, yes, our own way, yes, to go.
Yes.
But the God, the Spirit that put down those things for the choosing one, whom He will come and fulfill those things. When the person appears in our midst, he has a standard, yes, that is going to put according to the standard of the Spirit. Yes. So in that standard now is the reason why we see that the storehouse. I'm trying to bring this in so that anybody listening to will see how the thing connect before we bring in the offering that we are bringing. That the storehouse is that person in a generation that the Spirit chooses to dwell in. Yes. We have established that so that, yes, anybody that has not understand that should understand that now. We have said that that body become the storehouse of the Spirit, where the Spirit will choose to dwell in. Now, the heart of men become the tithes that they need to bring for the work that the Spirit has come to do in His house, which is our body. I don't know whether,
yes,
we are saying this, but we are reading it from the Bible to people to listen, to also hear that these things are the same thing that we quote in the church. You remember the last one of the episodes that we made, we talked about the Bible is not the word of God.
Yes.
That is the reason why I'm bringing this.
Yes.
Somebody will say, but you said in one of your episodes that the Bible is not the word of God.
Yes.
We have said that words would be forever spoken.
Yes.
That the word of God would be spoken from the person of God.
Yes.
Because He's a spirit.
Yes.
But that the Bible is a writing of that spirit.
Concerning the person.
Concerning that person, that choosing one.
Yes.
Which is what you are saying now. that it is only when the chosen one comes that he can fulfill this thing, make them happen in our lives, in the lives of everyone, irrespective of the money you have or the money you don't have. Because for him, it's not even those who have material things, but it can also be for those who have material things that does not attach value to it. That is why to have things, a man that has things that need to sell is not really the material things.
Yes.
It's the pride,
Yes.
which is the reason why the heart need to go to war.
Yes.
And that's why it's the heart which Sister described as the house of
The
God,
temple.
or the temple that Christ went in to chase out those that bought and sold. That's a picture of
The work
a
that
work,
must
a
be
work,
done.
a
Yeah,
work
has to be
that
done.
should be done.
Yes.
Because now, following the trend, just as we have explained, the heart now is where that Christ now is going to do that work.
Correct.
Yes.
And remember, we have described that it's that heart that drives the activities of man.
Yes.
So it's that heart now that he's,
See.
chasing out those,
Carrying out
bad eggs per se. It's from that heart he's chasing out those things. Because he has said that this house of his this is supposed to be the house. No, this is the house of his father, and it's meant to be a house
Of prayer.
Prayer.
But we have turned it into a den of thieves.
Yeah.
That's our activities.
Yes.
The
Let me
activities
chip
is-
something
the
in
activities
there.
is showing that.
Let me chip something there. In our world, because we have not, I don't think we have used this statement since we started talking about tithe. That they say that the tithe is a 10th part of you.
Yes. Yes.
But because human imagination is after material things, so the 10th part of your well-being, you call it, is from your income.
Yes.
But the tithe is the 10th part. That is a part of you.
Yes. It's not full. It's not whole.
It's not whole of you.
Yes.
That is why offerings is whole of you. When
Yes.
we are going there.
Yes.
But I need to put this word based on what we know in our word. That the tithe is the 10th. They call it 1/10.
Yes.
But in the Bible, you use the 10th part.
Yes.
If you check that word, the 10th, it doesn't mean money. It doesn't mean
Then
resources.
part of what?
But that is why they say it's a part of your whatever, your entire being.
Yes.
So the act now being a part of you,
The body, the whole-
as human, a part of you, is not whole of you.
Yes.
That is what makes the tithe, not the outside of what humans are driving.
Yeah.
So I'm only bringing that to connect to what the word we use and use it to make money out of people.
Yes.
You see? So you can continue.
So that's what sets the foundation for what offering is.
Yes.
We just try to exhaust what the meat is, because the offering, when you understand all these things, you now realize that there's really nothing much to the offering. And so it's just good to use the time we have on this episode to exhaust it on what needs to be really explained.
Yes.
Because the offering, when you really get to these other ones, you realize that there is really nothing to the offering.
But you see, that one that has nothing to it in discussion is the biggest one
Yes.
when it has to do with the
There's-
spirit.
because when you understand that, you see that there's really nothing to explain.
Yes.
You understand? Because the picture is now clear in your mind. Because if you remember, we have read that from that Malachi chapter 3, you understand? Around verses 3, he said, "And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi,
Yes.
and purge them as gold and silver,
Yes.
that they may offer unto the
the
Lord
Lord
an
the
offering
of
in
righteousness."
righteousness." You see, it shows you that now the work, the messenger is there. The tithe has been brought.
Yes.
Then the meat, which is the work, is going to take place. And it's after that work now goes on in the hearts of the people or the
Yes.
person,
Yes.
that an offering can be made.
Yes.
And you see that you can't make an offering which is in righteousness without going through this
The
process.
process.
Which is why I said your talk of your intent has laid the foundation for what our introduction to the talk of offering should be.
Yeah.
That's why I said there's really nothing to it, because the picture is clear when you follow the thread.
Yes.
And the picture is clear, because he now says that then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem, these are not places, but they are spiritual significance,
Yes.
that can be pleasant unto the Lord. You see, so it's only after all these things have happened that your offering, which is the entirety of your being, can be acceptable to the Lord, because he has now molded and purified and forged you into an object that is pleasant to him, which can't happen or which can't be done the way we do what we call tithing. Because when you don't know the ways of God and you go around exhibiting or establishing your own ways, thinking that that's the ways of God.
Yes.
This work can't be done, because that God is not there to do the work in you, and you can't do the work in yourself.
Yeah.
So that's why everything we do in the name of trying to please God, we see the outcome. It's like, what's going on?
Yes.
There's the expected outcome is not what we see. Even when we get favorable results from what we do, we still see it, subconsciously. We realize that there's something missing.
Yes.
And which is why we are still continuously crying for God, even after doing all these things, in the name of that supposed God. But the outcome of all those things we do in the name of God still shows that there's something lacking. So we continuously call for him, because there's need for that God to be on ground, to really show us and help us. You see, so that's the only way that we can do anything that will be acceptable to God, when he's the one who does the work. Don't forget, he's the one that prepares the bride and presents the bride to himself.
Yes.
That's spiritual work.
Yes.
You see, because with men, the bride will prepare herself and present herself to the husband, or to the husband,
to the
and
man.
the husband is meant to take her the way she is.
Yes.
But God is the one who prepares him, who prepares
His people.
his bride, his people, which is each and every one of us,
Yes.
because he's the husbandman. And that's what marriage represents.
That is
The
also
union-
what woman is. When we talked about
that's what marriage represents, the union between God and his people.
Yes.
So he's the one who prepares the people, so the people can meet his standards and requirements, and he presents the people to himself. You see, okay, now you guys have met my requirement, so you are now welcome.
Yes.
You see, so that's the only way. That's why the offering now, as we are saying, is, after all this work has been done, the entirety of your being, because after he has worked on the heart, which is the driving force, and he has put that heart back on track, then the activities of that heart would follow in line, or follow the track, or follow the path that will lead to that life, which is of God. And it's when you do that, or when that happens, that the offering now takes place, which is the entirety of your whole being. Like, you will now be acceptable to God.
And you see that the offering is only once.
Yeah.
But the one we were doing in the church is every day, every Sunday. You understand?
Every time
And
you find
you
yourself
can even see the way we mock our God there. In the church, what we do is that the tithe is a big envelope. That is what we do.
Yes.
But the offering
It's
is
loose
the
change.
small jar we give to
Yes.
God.
Yes.
Many times, people like us, I remember once I wanted to go to denomination, what we call church, but I didn't have money, offering. Do you know that I refuse not to go, because I don't want somebody to mock me? Because by the time when they walk on that queue and pass and put something, and you go, you don't put something. You see, me that does not have money, and I feel like I should go and worship God, I could not go because of what? Money. That is what money has done in our society.
Yes.
I want to bring something in from what you just said, the last thing you said. You just explained in a very brief point what marriage is.
Yes.
You just explained it. And you show that from your explanation and from everything we are discussing here, that there is a process that a man must undergo before marriage can take place.
Yes.
That is what this moment shows.
Yes.
And in that moment, in that process, it means there is a kind of teaching, a kind of pattern, a kind of lifestyle that somebody must follow. When you read in the Bible, somebody asked me, this is why the Bible says that in the last time, how did he put it?
The last days.
In the perilous time, there's a way he put it, that many will arise and they will forbid some to marry. Because of what? Because of the doctrine of the devil. And there's a way he put it.
Yes.
But what he's saying is that there's a kind of doctrine that they will bring, and that doctrine will forbid marriage. And we don't know that that doctrine is the doctrine of the world. Because the marriage that is forbidding is the one that we are supposed to have with our God.
Yes.
Which is the limitation that we have today as man. There's a big limitation in our world. That is the reason why first, for God or for the Lord being the Spirit, knowing that humanity needs correction, He will come first. I'm going back to that Malachi 1, that chapter 3, verse 1, that we keep using. I want to bring something there so that anybody listening to us should understand that everything that is written there, we have been shown from that very person. That there are no stories. There are no stories. From that Malachi 1, you see that the messenger that is coming, the messenger of God that is coming to do the work, or the messenger of the Lord that is coming to do the work, cannot be any man that the Lord is sending message. But rather, the person, that same person, when the Spirit comes first to put things in order, I call it the restoration.
Yes.
The moment of restoration. So there is no two person that one person will come and do as a messenger and another person will come. Because that is what we see when we read Bible. So it's that same person, but the state of God in the generation of humanity is that God is so powerful that humans can't contain him. But when he appears in the midst of the people, from that choosing one, he brings down that level of that spirit to a point that he can prepare some men.
From John.
Which is the state of John. To baptize those that he called the Mark 1, the elect. I don't know who is listening to us, but that program of this salvation is that when the Spirit comes, he begins the work from one person.
Yes.
Then he also have those he called the elect. Those he have the mark on. But the mark is not at the foreface of the person that anybody can see.
Yeah.
It's only him that knows the foreface, that is what he called the foreface. The sign that he has in everybody. So he bring out those elect to the choosing one to now prepare them, which are the sons of Levi. But you go down to verse 3 when you talk about this is now when the offering of Judah.
Jerusalem.
Do you remember?
Yeah, that's
Verse 4.
Verse 4. That the offering of,
Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto the Lord.
and when you are making this statement, it's not one country somewhere, but because the Judah is from the word. How did he call it? Somebody tell me, Kufra, I'm a Jew.
Yeah.
I'm a Jew. That means I can see.
Yes.
Judah are those who can see.
Yes.
A Jew is the person who can see, the first one, but the Judah become the people. So those who can see are those whom the Spirit has come to show this mystery, which you cannot get it if you are sitting down in your house with your heart. Keep your heart away from him. You can't get those things.
Yes.
So it is when we bring that heart, now you see that work. And when once that is done, you see that peace will return to all those ones, which is what signifies that Jerusalem of a thing.
Yes.
So I'm pointing this because they are in connection to what is going on. They are name used to signify things that is applying with everybody. It's not a story. Because that is what we have been shown to see that, in this world, we miss it.
Yeah.
That is why I said that in Psalm 82, verse 5. I think that way he said this, in that all the foundation of the earth are out of course. Before he even said, I said, they know not neither would they understand. Which is what is going on in the entire world.
They walk on in darkness.
We walk in darkness. The whole world walk in darkness.
That's
And the men whom we think can see are the men who claim to be of the God. But can they really see?
it's because we walk on in darkness. That's why the presence or the appearance of the person of God, just as the picture of Christ was painted, he put it out to the people that he is the light
Of the world.
because the world or the
Was in
people he
darkness.
has come to meet are in darkness.
Yes.
So he's that light that will bring them out of darkness, or he's that light that would shine so the people can see and walk their way out of
that
darkness.
That bondage life.
Yeah. So we would wrap what we have today with the blessing of God, which is as brief, if not more brief than the offering. Because we have said previously that we take the blessing of God to be
Money.
to be
Material things.
enrichment. Even if whether it's
When you pay your tithes,
monetary
it multiplies
enrichment,
for you.
whether it's good health, whether it's whatever, that's what we take to be the blessing of God. But we have tried to discredit that can be the blessing of God, because there are those, if not everybody, because as far as I'm concerned, there's nobody who knows the way of God. There's nobody who knows the way of God. So I would like to say there are those who don't live, or there are those who do things that have no connection with God. And I remember that there's nobody that can do things that has any bearing with God. So we find ourselves accumulating wealth, whether it's money, whether it's resources, whether it's whatever it is. Understand? There are those of us who have been fortunate to have good health. Understand? So there are those of us who have been lucky enough to experience the pleasant nature of the world, and we take that to be the blessing of God. But that's not the blessing of God. You see, because the blessing of God is for God to be with the people, to be with
Spirit
you,
in a
the
person.
Spirit of God to be with you.
That is Christ himself,
Christ in you. That's why he said Christ in you.
which is the hope of glory.
Yeah.
That is the blessing of God. And all these clues we are put in very subtle ways, all over the Bible. You understand? That is what the blessing of God represents. It has no bearing with your enrichment, with money or health or anything, because once the Spirit of God, which is that of Christ, is in a person, it's for life. It's life. It brings about life. And in life,
It's everything.
there's everything.
And this is what we have learned, that all men, humanity, have sinned and come short of.
The glory of God.
That is what it is.
Yes.
Everyone. So there's nobody that can claim that he has it. That is why the work now, from what you have been showing from the beginning of the storehouse, the tithe, the offering, the meat, the offering, you see, show you that all these processes are leading to one thing.
Yes, the blessing.
And that thing is what?
the
The blessing of God.
Which is why he said that if any man comes to Abraham, who blesses Abraham, God will bless. Meaning that whosoever that will come to God, which is in Abraham, that's where the blessing of Abraham, God can reach the person, which is not in material things.
Yes.
But that spirit that Abraham has to put you through in order for that spirit to be in a person, that makes the blessing of God.
Because the blessing we know today is this blessing of material things. When we go to church, God, everybody that go to church is God bless me. It's all about money. It's all about material things. God bless me so that I can achieve this. But just like Chidobe said earlier, just like the story of the rich man that say, Christ, I've done everything, but nothing is working. I've done everything. There's something lacking. Because our rich, those of us that are rich, we know there are still things that is lacking. Because we can have things but we don't have God.
Yes.
What we need is God. It's not things. If we can die physical death and allow the things we have inquired, allow them and die off, we bury it in just one cloth and inside gasket we die. So why can't we die the spiritual
death.
death that is offering? You, it's not the offering, it's not just go and pack your things and give to God. It's you first. Once you have accepted the foundation is going to lay for you and for me. So what is the remaining things? Everything will be taken care of by him. That's the only way the blessing can come to us.
Yes.
You wanted to say something?
Yes, and I say if you look at the way the blessing was put, he said, "Do this, and if I will not open the window of heaven," and the heaven is the personality of God Himself.
Yes.
So you see that the blessing that He's talking about here is Him. Is that your agreement to allow Him to work on you? That it makes the blessing is like a continuous statement, because it's talking about the blessing from the window of heaven. It means it's not complete, because
Yes.
when it's complete, it will be
The door.
entirety of God.
Is
Yes.
the offering that make
Yes.
the
Everything.
complete section.
Yes.
That is why I think I've said before when he said, "He that entereth not through the door, the same is a thief and a robber." And when we were talking about who a false prophet is, I said somebody can enter your door through window, your house through window, and he will still pick something.
Yes.
But you see, there are things you cannot carry from the window.
Yes.
You need the door to open for you.
Yes.
So bringing your tithe first,
Which is their
supposed
house.
to be at least a moment for you to be able to walk till you open the door completely, because submission or offering is something that you need to be sure
Or is a process.
that is God.
Yes.
So the process of that, handing your heart to Him to be able to walk on, show you. That is the realization that show the proof.
Yes.
So it's just our word that we are. I don't know how to put it. So if anybody listening to us out there should understand that this forum that we always bring every time, we are not here to condemn anybody. We are here to show our word, to point to our word, what we have seen. I don't know whether you understand my point.
Yes.
To point to our word, what is going on, who we must look for. Because no matter how we look for this person, we cannot find this person on our own
Yes.
without the person revealing himself to us. That is why in one of the episodes, which I need to put this to somebody watching us, that if God would born in a generation of
Men.
humans, men, there is no how anybody can identify that God by himself
No.
without God revealing himself to that person.
Yes.
So there is no wrong if God is in a generation and he reveals himself to somebody, and somebody now
Whispering
see
it.
another somebody and said, "Brother or sister, I've seen something. Oh, come and see." It's a good thing. But you see what the Bible have done to us? If they tell you Christ is here, don't go. Because of what? We know how to read. So I'm saying this so that somebody should understand that no matter how we read the Bible, it is where the Spirit has chosen to dwell in, which is in the body of a person, that counts.
Yes.
It's not the knowledge of the Bible.
Yes.
So
You see, all these explanations and analysis, all this talk and everything that has been said, especially on this issue of tithes. Understand? You can see how men, due to the knowledge which they have, that men, due to the knowledge which they have that is not of God, has misapplied and scattered a process that was meant to bring life. See? So I just hope that based on the issues we have tried to raise and the lights that we have tried to shine on them, that those of you who are watching us, or those of you who may be listening to us, have been able to understand or see things from a different perspective, and make up your mind to make your move to seek out or find out or locate this person who has been described as the only person that can do the work that would bring about life, that would bring about, the resurrection from the dead state of man.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say on this note that we have come to the end of today's program. And just as we always say, if you have inquiries to make, you can send us an email via the addresses on your screen, and we'll be sure to get back to you. So until we come your way next time, bye for now.